It's all a bit frustrating, this, isn't it? It means that more or less all of the big issues of the day that need to be sorted out are all on the back burner because the Tories can't work out who's in charge.
Well, there is that. I mean, if the one thing, perhaps, the criticism of Boris is that he wasn't able to get the big thing that he was elected in to get done, now it's certainly the case that there's lots of issues that are not getting done. I think that the thing about the online safety bill is that it should be jettisoned. I think that it's inherently problematic, it's draconian, it seeks to criminalise distress. So how does one quantify what distress is? It's completely subjective. It's going to be down to regulators. It's going to be down to big tech. We know that big tech has already taken down and shadow banned lots of people who have been saying things that now are commonly known and accepted. And just the other day, Dr. Anthony Hinton was banned from Twitter permanently for just asking, as it happens, surely if pregnant women should get a warning going into a sauna, perhaps they should get warnings for other things as well when they do about alcohol and cigarettes and all sorts of other things for a procedure. He was banned permanently for that. And if we get a situation where the government outsources censorship, which is effectively what this is, it's treating everyone like children, where big tech gets fined £18 million or 10% of their revenue, which could be far more, the impulse and the incentive on them will be to even more legislate and prevent and shut things down. So the government's dishonest in the sense that it's outsourcing censorship. If you're going to start censoring things, at least have the courage to say we're going to do it. But which would be wrong and we could fight it democratically, then you outsource it on the basis of serious distress or legal but harmful. So things we're allowed to say elsewhere, you're not allowed to say online, on the basis, on the idea that it's protecting children. So basically it's treating everyone in society as children. And for sure there are some issues that we need to get our arms around, right, when it comes to children and other things. But many things are illegal already, right? So we've got laws about legality and others. And the problem with the government often is that it's trying to make all these laws and legislation about things that are in the political arena that we need to have. Now, our free speech that our ancestors and many in our families fought and died for in the recent and longer history, we're custodians of that free speech. If we lose that, if we don't have the ability to do that, and big tech is the public square, right? So if we can't have these conversations and respectfully and civilly, but sometimes not even respectfully and civilly, but in really rude ways, talk to one another and thrash things out, then we can become a society that's no longer free. And that's why the Together Declaration, as one of its pillars, is free speech. And we've encouraged everyone to write to their MPs, to write to the government, to DCMS. Obviously, there's a range of changing positions right now. Yeah. But also with the opposition, and we're saying that, you know, it's really important. As it happens, Kemi Badenoch has come out against this and saying, for the most part, it needs to entirely go. We think the whole thing should go. As it happens, it's quite draconian the way it's been put together. But we would really encourage people to keep having their voices heard, your viewers, to let their MPs know, because this is something really important. And I think that the Conservatives should really think clearly, because on the one hand, there's the MPs that are voting, but then there's Tory members as well, right? And if you go out and speak to ordinary people, but this thing about being able to speak freely in Britain is a really important thing to people, right? They shouldn't just assume that it's just cavalierly to be discarded.
No, of course. But what you've just described happening to Dr. Tony Hinton has just happened to him without any of this being in place. So the current situation is not ideal either, is it?
Absolutely not ideal. One of the things is that this whole idea of, you know, we know that Ofcom had a ruling throughout the start from COVID about what should, advising broadcasters what to do and say. And we also know that there's real concern about this discussion about misinformation and disinformation. One of the problems about science is that you quite conceivably could accuse Copernicus of disinformation and Galileo, which many people did, of course, right? They were heretics and they argued against established strong narratives and norms. And in science and in society, if we do not have the ability to do that, we're in a perilous situation. So you're right. Big tech is already taking people down, particularly around the discussions around the vaccines and the jabs. Ironically, particularly at a time where, you know, and we know that it's really good that the government on September the 19th has now agreed to have a discussion and debate about vaccine injuries and what that means and about the safety of the vaccine. We know that some people are being compensated, but that we should have a grown-up discussion about it. We should say, look, in the large order of things, are the risks and the costs and the benefits ones that we want to have in comparison to others? And let us all decide, right? But it does obviously throw questions up like why people wanted to push a mandate and passports. And it also means that we need to think very carefully about what is said. And I think, if you're going to talk about disinformation and misinformation, you're good for goose and gander, right? Because there's a whole load of people that have said a whole load of things that weren't quite true. The reality is life's messy and it can be confusing.
And the other reality, of course, Alan, is that if you've got private companies which are run by, boards that we do not control, because basically it's supposed to be a free market, then they can make the rules, can't they? I mean, if you want to be on Twitter, I'm afraid you have to adhere to the rules that Twitter will make you adhere to. And if you don't want to be on Twitter, you don't like it, you can't be. And I think, in a way, that's kind of the purest form of this you're ever going to get. Because once you start trying to police it from a different place, then it starts to get even more complicated, doesn't it?
Well, it does. The thing is that we've seen in the discussions in Twitter, like, for instance, around Elon Musk and others, there are various people from shareholders to participants that have concerns that there are particular views, and they're not necessarily even the shareholders per se. They're certain people that are running things that might have certain ideas or certain viewpoints, and then they consider other things to be not fitting that narrative. Now, it's true, right? They're a company, but these big tech companies have become the public square now, right? This is where discussions and debates are had out, as well as obviously Parliament and out on the street and everything. So I think the thing is that as much free speech as possible, we already have laws. The government, where the government is concerned, they should not be incentivizing and pressurizing big tech to have a sort of censors charter and to be limiting and stifling speech even more. In fact, it's ironic because they've got a discussion about schools and about kind of the whole agenda and wanting to have more free speech in universities. So this is directly contradictory. So I mean, the thing about a principle, free speech is one of the clearest, right? We either have it or we don't. You can't start saying, well, I don't like what Mike's saying, so I don't want him to be able to say that, but I want everyone to hear what I've got to say. And it's one of the problems about people who won't defend it, right? They often do it on the basis they like the